Guys, it's whiskey in a bag day. Oh boy, here we go. Okay, here's a quote for you that was the point of today's video. Good magic isn't cool. It can't be cool. Cool is divisive. Cool is exclusionary. Cool does not sit next to the new kid at lunch, and good magic is all about sitting next to the new kid at lunch. That's a quote from Nate Staniforth from his book called Here is Real Magic, that if you haven't read it, you should. Nate was actually here at the Academy a few years back and hung out with us. He's a really amazing human being. Wow, that's a weird... That feels wrong. That opening is disproportionately small compared to the... Anyway, I got distracted. Last week, this is why this is important. I wrote a whole newsletter on this, for the Wizard Academy. But last week I was roaming the campus with a small group of people who've... One's been here, but the other two had never been here, or the other few had never been here before. And we walked into the tower, and we went to the art gallery, and we walked our way up, and we got to this library level, and I played some of the, bells, and I just, showed them paintings, and we walked over and checked out the vault, and went to the roof, and as we were walking back downstairs, one of them said, man, if you could just show the whole world how cool this place is, people would be beating down your door to be in here. And, you would have a waiting list of like 2 years for people to be able to show up and attend things. And my first, I felt it well up from my toes. Just, it was a sort of, not revulsion, but a sort of oh, hell no. Hell no. Immediately. And I had to try to keep my face straight instead of react oh, God, no. And I didn't say anything because he had never been here before. He didn't know. He was just thought this was really cool. And like many of the students at Wizard Academy, he was just like, man, more people should know about this. Sure, I agree. Sort of. I've been thinking about that, and I realized I'd said this sentence now for 6 to 7 years, which is the death of Wizard Academy would be if we became cool. And I said that long before I read the book. And Nate Staniforth, when I read the book when Nate came and was here for a gathering, it's 2018 or 2019? 2018. I don't remember. Anyway, then I read his book and I was like, yeah, absolutely. But I'd forgotten about it until my dad posted it. But I've said that a lot here. If we become cool, because the kinds of people that show up when something's cool would kill this place in 1 year. I'll explain that in a second. But first, this was a gift, and Mike Russo, one of our Psalms, brought, and I didn't realize that Crown Royal was also getting into the single malt game. Of course they are. They're Diageo. Bullet got into the single malt game. They're also Diageo. A lot of the big brands are starting to tiptoe their way into single malt. And as of the shooting of this video, literally right now, this video is being shot on December 18th. As of today, the TTB federal regulations have been altered to include a new category for the first time since 1968 called American Single Malt Whiskey. They've been fighting for it for almost 4 years, 2 years aggressively. I've been on multiple outreaches and phone calls. I've not been a part of the American Single Malt Commission except as a member and as a contributor, but the founders of the American Single Malt Commission have been working their butts off, advocating, phone calls, writing the rules, working with members, and it all paid off. Today is the day, for the first time since 1968, a new category in the Federal Beverage Code for whiskey, American Single Malt, has a category. That is freaking amazing, but we owe it to all of the American craft guys who came into whiskey making through the door of Scotch and Irish history and started making a whiskey that was not common in North America until the last like 15 years, 10 years, really 10, but 15, 20 is when they started. That's amazing, right? So of course the big players are now getting involved and going like, hey, we got single malt. Now, you can't pull that trigger overnight, right? So if you're gonna release a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old single malt, when did you start this plan, right? So Crown Royal didn't jump on the bandwagon last year because they heard single malt would be cool. Crown Royal got on the bandwagon probably in the last 10 years when they were like, you know what, we should start looking into single malt. That's a thing. And so now we get to try it. No idea how old it is or anything else about it. I looked a lot, but I can't find any published information. So we're going to try some Crown Royal. Okay, I must be approaching that wrong. Let me just reset, because what I got doesn't smell like malt whiskey at all. My first thought was cinnamon. That's wrong. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just needed a reset. No, it's still really soft and subdued. I don't know if you remember my review of the Bullet single malt, but it was like the most mild barley, mild whiskey, mild approach to single malt that I'd ever tried before, which made sense because that's sort of what Bullet bourbon is to bourbon. And it makes sense that they would do an entry level sort of like, if you've never had it, let's tiptoe you into barley. Crown Royal is that for whiskey. Crown Royal, its entire identity is that it's mild enough that just about anybody can find a way to be okay with it, but it's not so boring that it tastes like, right? There's a lot of whiskey nerds that would argue that sentence with me, but you're wrong. Crown Royal has its place for sure. I don't prefer it, but it definitely has its place. Okay, all I'm smelling, this is weird, I keep getting this sort of like spice note that I've never smelled in a malt before. And it feels like my nose is broken. I am getting a little bit of that ethanol forward, sort of light, almost blended note. It makes me wonder, it would be so expensive to do that though. It makes me wonder if they used a column still for any part of the whiskeys in this. But that doesn't make sense. But it smells like that sort of light metallic vanilla. And I think the metallic note is so strong that it's coming across as spicy to my nose. We're going to take a sip. Okay. It's hint of barley. There's no barley funk like you would get in a Scottish or even an Irish malt. There's not a lot of the pastry and buttercream. There is a lot of the vanilla, the metallic astringency, a little bit of a slight grain note. Overall, mild, simplified, everything that I would describe of a normal Crown Royal, just with a slight hint in the direction of barley instead of whatever grain they're using otherwise. I don't know if it's all pot still. I would love to know that. It doesn't feel like it. Or if it is, it's real young. And proof down to 40, I'm guessing. 45, okay, wow. All right. I wasn't really expecting a ton, and it delivered. Oh, it sounds like such a jerk sentence, but I don't mean it that way. If somebody was trying to transition into like, hey, I only drink Crown and Coke or Crown on Rocks, and I'd like to try to get into that single malt, I would absolutely be like, all right, let's start with doing exactly what you already drink, Coke or Rocks, but get the Crown Royal single malt and see what you think. Because there are flavor notes in barley that aren't in other grains that throw people. Like I know bourbon drinkers that as soon as barley is the dominant grain, they're out. There's a little chemical in there that they just cannot handle at all, and it's terrible to them. And so you would get an inkling of that in this for sure. Okay, So, my dad, Brad Whittington, posted the quote from Nate Staniforth. I'm going to add just a dash of water it just feels like a mistake, but. That was that quote. Good magic isn't cool because cool is divisive. Cool is not inclusive. And it's about sitting next to the new kid at lunch. And good magic is about sitting next to the new kid at lunch. And I thought, yes, that revival of that quote by my dad came at the right time in my brain. Within 24 hours of me giving a tour to these people who are like, this place is so cool. Imagine if everybody knew how cool it was. And me going like, oh, no, that's a terrible idea. We are not cool. We're nerds. And we're small business nerds, and we're entrepreneur nerds, and we're nerds, and we're whiskey nerds, and we're just, in any gathering at Wizard Academy, at any class, you do not find a group of the cool kids. You find a group of people who have done really frickin' well with their life and are doing amazing things with their life, but who would probably go back to their 15 or 20 year reunion to prove to everybody that they turned out good. Like me, right? This is not the people who were probably voted most likely to succeed by any measure that was deemed as cool and important in high school, right? Or in a general expose. Cool people, and man, I am putting a label on something, because yes, you're right. True cool is people who don't give a shit. They default become cool, right? What I'm talking about is the people for whom it's important to be cool and be trendy and be, whatever. What are the words? Hip? I don't know. Those people like shiny objects. Those people like to ride the next wave. Those people are the surfers of life. They are always trying to read the room, read the temperature, and become the new thing that's also cool now. Those people don't typically like to wade in and do the boring, hard work, to do the things that make them seem or feel silly or ridiculous because they're effective and important. And that's who Wizard Academy is. We are the people who wade in, we do the work, we commit to unreasonable dreams, we do things even when they seem stupid to everyone else, or when they seem silly. We record commercials where the general public is like, well, that's ridiculous and you should feel silly doing that, but it's effective and it works and it's important. We make a better world for businesses, for our customers, for our employees and their families. That's our brand of crazy. Cool does not care about other people. Cool cares about your own self-image. That is the opposite of who we are. So, greetings to you, my fellow uncool people. For we are one and the same. From your uncool home here in Texas, there will always be room for uncool people at our table. Water made it simple and sweet and added nothing except a weird, sickly, clingy note that's almost syrupy, but not quite. Meh, it's fine. Regardless, I'm really glad you're here. Cheers. Wait, hang on. Normally I end right here, but I'm going to add this little addendum. The reason we have single malt as a category is because uncool people did an uncool thing for 2 decades until the rest of the world caught up. Cheers to you. If you want the most uncool videos on YouTube, then like and subscribe to the Whiskey Vault.